Lilian.
Hello everybody.
Can you believe we made it to episode number 2?
Yes, episode 2. Very excited.
I'm very excited.
Yeah, I am excited. I just don't know.
Yeah. It's been a long week. Okay, so today we're going to talk about a movie that we saw a little over about a month ago.
Yeah.
Called Cuckoo.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited for this episode because I think we have different reactions, different opinions.
Yeah.
So it'll be great for us to tease those out and have more of a... I think our last movie, we kind of were like pretty much on the same page.
Yes, we were on the same page.
Yeah. And so this one I think will be fun.
Yes.
Because it'll be a little spicier.
Yes. I will object to many things that you have to say, but yeah. No, yeah. I mean, yeah. Do you want to get the ball rolling?
Okay, so I'll get the ball rolling. I will give a little bit of an overview of what the movie is about. Spoiler alert, because it is, like, I guess, part horror, part psychological thriller, I don't really think we can talk about the movie without going into the plot.
Yes, yeah.
So if you haven't seen it and you don't want to be spoiled, then just click out and watch it and then come back to this video maybe.
I would recommend not watching the film and just watch this. It'll be far more entertaining and it would be a better experience. Yes.
I definitely think that you should watch this film and it's going to be much more entertaining than watching me and Anand fight.
No, there'll be substance here, there'll be intrigue.
Oh my god, so funny.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we're going to get some spicy fighting words. But basically, as per usual, Anand asked if I wanted to see a movie. I knew nothing about it. I don't think either of us had seen the trailer.
No, I avoided the trailer.
Yeah, which is also, I think, key, is to go into it kind of blind. And in a nutshell, the way I would describe this movie, it follows the story of a 17-year-old girl named Gretchen. And she's American, but she's being uprooted from her home to go live in Germany, in the German Alps, maybe for the summer.
Yeah.
Or it turns out maybe for the long term. And her mother has passed away, so she's with her father and her stepmother. And her father and the stepmother have had a child. So she has, I guess, a stepsister then.
Yes, they have a daughter.
Yeah, they have a daughter, yeah. So we follow Gretchen. She has like typical kind of teenage angst. She doesn't like that she's been uprooted from her friends and her family, or I guess she misses her mom. And they are in the German Alps because her father is in this business venture to develop one of the holiday rental cabins with this mysterious, I guess he's Dr. Koenig or Mr. Koenig, who owns the resort. I guess you don't know he's a doctor. Mr. Koenig, who owns the resort and is working with her father to set up some type of business venture. Gretchen gets a summer job to work in the, what's it called? The
reception.
The reception. And then weird things start to happen.
Yes, yeah. That's a good opening. Yes, that's a good premise. So we have this young teenage girl that is dealing with grief from her deceased mother.
Yes.
She's taken away to live with her estranged father. I think they don't have a very strong relationship.
Yeah, not estranged because they're together, but definitely a strained relationship.
Strained, yes,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think she also, that bleeds into her relationship with her sister, she doesn't really have much of an interaction, especially towards the beginning with her sister, which is crucial to as the film goes on.
And just building on that, the sister's much younger, and the sister can't speak for some reason.
She's mute.
She's mute, so she can only communicate through this device that she uses that can speak like robotic or AI language. And I think she also feels very alienated because she doesn't speak German. So she's like in this foreign land. Everyone speaks English, but it definitely does have that sense of like you feel isolated because not only are you a teenager, but you're in a completely foreign country and you don't want to be there.
Correct.
Okay, that's the premise. Should we dive into the batshit crazy stuff?
We need to tell you the whole film before we can even begin to discuss this.
Okay, this is good. Let's just try to remember the film. So the first weird thing that happens is she's working the till. And she is not, Mr. Koenig doesn't want her out late at night. She's working the till and like this lady starts throwing up in the reception. Is that the first thing?
So from what I remember, she has this job as that Dr. Koenig, the German guy who sort of owns the resort. The second you see Dr. Koenig, brilliantly played by Dan Stevens, you know he's a Bond villain. He's just giving sinister vibes from the beginning. He doesn't even hold it. At least that was my perception.
Yeah, it's totally great. Yeah.
And so he offers Gretchen this part-time job as a receptionist at the resort, and she immediately agrees.
Yeah.
I think maybe to distract herself or to, you know.
I mean, I wouldn't say she like immediately in the sense that wants to do it, but she's just like, shut up, stop talking to me.
Yes,
like, whatever,
I'll do
I'll do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And her colleague wants to get off early, but Dr. Koenig insists that she not take the late shift. Gretchen not take the late shift. Her colleague needs to take the late shift, and her colleague hates it because she's like, I have a social life. I want to go out and do stuff. And she sort of cajoles Gretchen into saying, can you take the late shift? And Gretchen's like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. And this is really upsetting to Dr. Koenig when he finds out, because Gretchen locks up the receptionist desk, so she's cycling home.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, so and I love how she's depicted. Like, she's a very cool teen. She like plays the bass or the guitar. She's always listening with her big noise canceling headphones. I think like music and like not being able to hear, not being able to speak is like a key theme of this like horror genre that the movie is. So she's kind of like ignorant of the outside world and just has that confidence that a teen does, and she's like, I'm just gonna bike home, I'm not gonna wait. Mr. Koenig is like, wait for me to come pick you up in the car. She's like, I'm just gonna bike home, like, why would I listen to him, right?
And I also think it also plays into how she's dealing with her grief and her disrespect,
like and disrespecting the
authority or any figures of authority. And I do want to make a side note on Hunter Schafer. She's one of this new up and coming. I often think about new Hollywood, like who is the people that are going to take the next mantle forward, and I think she did really wonderfully in this role. And one thing I particularly liked was how she's a trans woman, but it was never pointed out. You know, it wasn't ever like described. Similar to, I don't know if you've seen Tenet, the Christopher Nolan film. Like, no one ever said, hey, you're a black James Bond guy. I really like that when it's not really made a big deal of. And she was also kind of androgynous. You know what I mean? She wasn't super feminine to try and prove like, no, I'm really a woman. So I really liked the way that she was presented.
I mean, the actress is trans. I don't even know if the character is trans. You know what I mean? But
it wasn't described. It was just there, which I really enjoyed. But back to the story.
Hunter Schafer's amazing. So I actually first saw her in Euphoria. I feel like that's her breakout role. And she's really fantastic in that. I mean, so is Zendaya. But she was an amazing actress in this film. But the thing that made this scene that we're describing so creepy to me is that she can't hear what's going on around her, which is why I'm also a little nervous that you now have noise-canceling headphones that you're going to
They're worth it.
You're going to get run over. Okay, so she's bicycling home, and the way the set is shot, the way the shot is set up, which I do think like the camera work and the filming was really good in this film, is you see her shadow of her vigorously cycling home, or just normally cycling home. She can't really hear what's going on because she has her headphones in, but then she realizes she's being chased.
Yeah, it's quite late at night.
It's quite late at night. It's dark, pitch black, and she's trying to escape. I feel like she already knows that something's a little off, and she's trying to get home fast. Anyway, you see the first introduction of the monster in the film is the shadow of the monster juxtaposed right next to her bicycling. So you see the shadow of the monster before you see the monster itself, and it was creepy and
it was really that was probably the most exquisite scene in this film, because I really felt it. It was the way that we introduced this horror mystery to us. And I would say one thing, this film actually starts with a cold open, and that cold open starts off with a couple fighting in a house. You don't know anything that's going on.
Oh, I love the opening. We got to talk about it.
And it pans to this another teenage girl who sort of sneaks off into the night. She gruffs away, and she seems sort of not entirely human or something like that.
Because we see the close-up of her throat beating really fast, or her ears, something weird. I forget exactly.
It's some eerie mystery that the audience isn't supposed to know about. And I feel like when Gretchen was cycling, she saw that woman in the shadows, and you start thinking, oh, is that going to play a part? But actually it's some other unknown figure that is at her tail. I think at this point we're going to describe this shadow mystery person as the hooded woman.
Yes.
Okay. So the hooded woman, I think she does very briefly make an appearance, but it's not very clear what this hooded woman is about. She's dressed a bit like Audrey Hepburn. She's got this.
But did you read that? That's what the director tried to base her on.
Oh, I don't know
Audrey
this.
Hepburn from Charade.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Yes, yeah, like skulking around in her.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I think maybe this should be spoken about a bit later, but we have this mysterious creature that is chasing us, and this evokes Jaws. So Jaws is exquisite in the sense that it knows you shouldn't show too much of your creature. And I think in this scene, it was the perfect amount to generate mystery. But as the film goes along, we see more and more of the creature until it just becomes less threatening or less scary, in my opinion. I don't know if you felt this.
Well, I mean, I definitely think it makes the creature less scary, but I really like it when I'm not teased for too long. And when the ending does show the monster in full light, and also the ending of another movie we saw, The Substance, like there was blood everywhere.
Yes,
like I do love when the idea is taken to the complete, like, full fruition of the kernel. But anyway, I want to go back to, you made me think of so many things. So number one, the other thing I really like in scary movies is when you start to get that unsettled feeling from the very beginning.
Yes.
And your comment about the opening made me realize that I think this film did that well, because the way that the couple argues about, okay, the couple sounds very banal, whatever, normal arguing, but then when you see this creature, this young girl run off, you hear a voice on the radio being like one of the, I forget the words that he uses, but he uses some type of like, referring to her as like a specimen.
Right, has escaped or something
like
and
that. So that's when you start to think, okay, like, what is this creature?
Right.
Who's doing, what nefarious things are happening? And it's like a good teaser.
I need to reiterate this. The first 30 to 45 minutes of this film is good. I don't have any problems with it. I think afterwards, after around this point, it loses me. So in the cycling scene, she escapes by cycling to the nearby hospital, and I think she has some sort of an injury in the hospital, and she's treated, and the police come, and she describes as this hooded woman was chasing me, but the police completely dismiss her claims and say, oh, you're probably seeing things, it's late at night. So it's again where she feels a disconnect from authority. At the hospital, she sees her father and her stepmother and her sister, because her stepsister has been hospitalized for seizures. So then we realize all of a sudden that her stepsister is also facing some sort of weird medical problems. And when her father sees her, he is so concerned about his daughter with his new family that he sort of dismisses her and say, you look fine, there wasn't anything that wrong. So that makes her feel even more isolated.
And I would say like the background current is she listens to her mom, she calls her mom's cell a lot just to hear her voice on the voicemail. I think at that point she's already like, I don't like it here, like I want to go back. She mentions like, I can go back to our old home, and then later it's revealed, I think much later, that the father has sold the home, but she's basically just very homesick and unhappy that she has to be there.
Some weird things happens at night where this woman comes in and she's just vomiting, and then she leaves
out of sorts,
like she's drunk or something, but she's distracted by another guest woman who
hot lesbian
who Gretchen is attracted to, and then the next day they start making out in the parking lot, and then Gretchen's like, I have some money stashed away, let's go run, I can, just drive me off into the nearest airport, let's go. Hot lesbian woman says sure, and then they drive up the mountains, and then they are interrupted by, ta-da, the hooded woman appears again.
Oh, you're right.
And then they get into a massive car accident, and then a car tumbles, and they're rescued by the police. I think that's where we fully see the hooded woman. This is my big problem with the hooded woman, the Jaws argument. We see too much too soon. It should, like in The Substance, that all came out in the end. It was really, you need to build the tension with this. You know what I mean? You can't just go full frontal so early. And we did that with the hooded woman. She winds up in the hospital, then the parents come, and then she is sort of viewed as really insolent and ungrateful. She's, and like doing all these reckless things. From her
sister who actually is ill with seizures. But before, that carries the plot forward a lot in what we're summarizing. But before that, I think something we should describe is this weird effect where you hear something and then like time loops.
Absolutely.
That happens much earlier.
I think it's whenever the hooded woman appears.
Yeah. Kind of like echolocation, like beacon that she sends out, and then if you can hear it, then it time warps you a little bit.
Correct. So so what happens is that there's a very close-up shot of the hooded woman's throat.
Yeah.
And then the throat, I guess the skin is sort of vibrating.
Yeah.
And the entire cinema is vibrating. And whatever images that you saw, you get deja vu because it keeps getting repeated.
Yeah.
So it sort of stultifies whoever. It's her way of like, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for?
Freezing or paralyzing.
Stultifies or stunning whoever her victim is or
but
who she's trying to come at.
It affects everyone who hears it, or does it only affect... Okay.
Yeah, certainly. Okay. Because I guess the main way to not get affected by it is to close your ears.
Yeah. Okay. I will say I did like... this is maybe more of a tactic than a message, but I liked the soundtrack of the movie and the use of sound effects, then enhancing this idea of like protecting yourself by not hearing the call of the monster. You're just trying to like stay in your own world and be immune to the forces outside that could then penetrate. But anyway, okay, going back to the plot. So then we've gotten to Gretchen is like properly hurt and bandaged up and like kind of in crisis mode because weird things are happening, but the adults are not listening to her.
And we should also mention that there was a scene in between because we're building up to the big reveal over what is happening.
Yeah.
So just before we get there, we should mention that there is some sort of a disconnect between Gretchen and her stepsister, but at one point, I don't know what time era this is, but they have physical answering tapes and cassette tapes.
The answering machine.
Yes,
she's playing back the messages.
Yes.
So she hears a message that her stepsister has left for her mom. We're describing the scene, which I do think it's important because it is like, to me, the emotional heartbeat of the movie is the relationship between like chosen family, parasitic family, blood family, right? So that's why I think this scene's really important. But Gretchen overhears on her mom's answering tape, because she has her mom's stuff now, a message that her stepsister has sent to her mom saying something to the effect of, Gretchen seems really sad, she misses you a lot, if you could come visit, we would love for you to visit, and kind of inviting her to come visit. Not realizing that her mom's dead, and also I think it's more poignant because it's not even... like, it's hard for the sister to speak, so she has to use this little machine to have a robotic voice, and that's how we hear the message.
Coming back to the scene where she gets her box of stuff, and she realizes that her father has concealed from her that her house was being sold. She has an outburst, and I think
but I love, do you remember the Dr. Koenig guy says something like, weird, and she kind of breaks the fourth wall, and she goes, that's not a normal thing to say to her family.
Your family belongs to you.
That's a fucking weird way to put it.
I think around this time is when the film lost me tonally, I think. It just felt like such a weird... anyways, we'll carry on with the thing. We'll go back with tone later. The detective comes when she has just finished her car crash with the hooded woman. And then he rescues her. And again, this is an absurd... this is where we go to the absurd parts of this film, because so many random things happen, like... Henry, the police detective, shows up out of nowhere. Hooded woman shows up out of nowhere. They're deep into the Alps, driving very, very fast.
He's from that town, and like his wife died in this.
But people can't teleport to places. Like, I can understand.
Your issue is with how quickly he appeared.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take a step back. I'm Henry. I'm a police detective. There are weird deaths that are occurring in my neighborhood, right? So how would I identify this one American teenage girl, and then I decide to follow her, and then she happens to get into a car accident because of a hooded woman, and good for me, I'm just there in time. You know what I mean? There's a lot of... I'm fine with that.
Like, maybe he was listening to the police scanners. Maybe he has like, I don't need to see a picture of his wall with all of the, like, research he's done. I just buy into it.
So this is my central problem with this film. If this was called The Revenge of the Cuckoo Monster... 100% I'm on with you.
Yeah.
If this was a B movie and it relished in being a B movie, this is a ridiculous film, don't think about it too much, 100%. But this is like an A24
but you're taking
film.
it to the extreme. I don't think it's like total camp, don't take it seriously. I think it just doesn't act like its audience is stupid. Like, I feel like we could go through this whole, like, if I want to watch a very tight spy thriller where all the plot points, how do we get from here to there, that is a different movie or a different series. Like this, I'm like, I don't need to know like how he connected the dots. I just want him to arrive and like, let's get the action going.
I think it's trying to have its cake and eat it too. It needs to be, either dig into it. Like, this is a ridiculous plot.
Okay, this is what I think we should talk about, which is I think the key like division in how we both receive this film. For me, this film is like a few creepy ideas or interesting ideas just kind of being played out, and it's meant to be experienced in kind of like, I want the audience to come away thinking about a few different ideas. It's not, to me, I'm not so into like the plot and it being plot driven and like it being like making sense or like having a neat sequence of events.
I guess like I'm trying to see where this film is coming from and what it's trying to achieve. And when I think about this film, especially the way the first 30 to 45 minutes, which is very well paced and well done, it evokes films to me like Hereditary or Rosemary's Baby, where we have this protagonist that comes into the world and something's not quite right. And then as the plot progresses, more is revealed. And then once the film ends, as you chew on the plot of the film, you realize, oh, so that's why that happened, or that, all the dots start connecting. And here, some dots connect, but some dots don't. And any dot that doesn't connect, you're like, forget about. You know what? It just frustrates me. It's either
I hear what you're saying,
trying to do something or you're not.
No, but I hear what you're saying. I just don't think that many. I don't think there was anything that unrealistic about it. Especially if you want to use Rosemary's Baby or Hereditary as examples, like those are definitely not bulletproof movies from plot points of view either.
Yeah.
It's more about like giving you enough so that there's a story or a framework for then this creepy idea or these ideas of like, I really want to talk about like family and like women as vessels of reproduction and like nature versus humanity, like all these interesting things that we can talk about later.
Yeah.
It's more like the plot was just like a framework for that. But I hear what you're saying. Like, it can be very frustrating if you felt like there was not enough scaffolding to actually.
But you're highlighting things that I agree the film was trying to do. I'm just saying they didn't do it effectively. It felt like they did it with Scotch tape. All I'm saying is this could have been done much better. You know what I mean? But
it sounds. Correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds to me like you want a lot more like. There's like gaps in the plot that make it hard to. Like when you say better, you want to explain. Like for me, a good movie is I understand every character's motivation, and there are some cool ideas that I can then think about later. I don't necessarily have to understand like how everything unfolds. I'm totally fine with not understanding like why is he there? Where did she come from? Like I'm, like it's art. Like it's.
I mean, the what we've been talking about now, those nitpicks that I've made. They're acceptable. It's when we get to the... should we just reveal the big...
For sure.
Okay, so the jig is up.
So basically what's happening is Dr. Koenig is using this... There's this ancient species, right? And it's kind of like based on a cuckoo bird. And he wants to... The species is about to go extinct. He wants to preserve it. The way he's doing that is by inseminating women that come to his holiday resort place so that they then become pregnant with the baby, have the baby, and then the baby is like this creature, and then like it continues on. So the main like act of violence or like bad thing that's happening is that this detective's wife, it happened to her. It's happening to Gretchen's coworker.
The key word, I think it's called brood parasitism. Essentially, it's found in cuckoo birds, and it's a phenomenon seen in the animal kingdom where animals have children, and then they put their children or their eggs or something in other animals' nests. Cuckoo bird is most famously known for doing this. So a key concept now. we are 2 for 2 in convoluted films, okay? Brazil and Cuckoo.
Yeah. No, but I don't think it's that convoluted. Like, I don't think you even have to know that. Like, clearly, actually, one of my gripes is that the connection wasn't made more strongly. I think before, like, I didn't know that going into the movie. I don't know if you knew about brood parasites going into the movie, but brood parasites is something I learned after I saw the movie and Googled it.
I see.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think if you're just taking the movie for what it is, that is, like, he's trying to preserve this ancient species. We don't really know why, but I'm fine. If that was your gripe, like, why is he even doing this? I can kind of understand that.
I made a list of questions of why
but
this,
I also, I can buy, that's the thing. I'm like, I can, you know, pride, ego, environmentalism. Like, I don't need to know the specific reason. Like, it's very believable to me that some dude has some wayward quest. Like, that's such a common thing in the world that, like, I'm fine with that being glossed over, because that would have made the movie so literal and so, like, I'm here for like a thriller that makes me think, that like kind of has these creepy elements as well as some camp elements. I'm not here for a like complete rundown of everyone's like backstory, and
that's fine, but then it's just tonally inconsistent, this film, because I understand what you're saying and I hear you, but then let's go with Dan Stevens. Dan Stevens knows what he's doing. He's playing a Bond villain. Bond villains have stupid motivations all the time.
So, it doesn't matter.
Then be a camp Bond villain movie where it's like, I shall make you my brood. Let's, you know what I mean? It was.
But I feel like it did. I would say it did have elements of camp, and I think it worked for me. Like, I don't think it was trying to be like a slick, only like a Shutter Island, which I haven't seen, but I'm assuming that's what that movie's like. I felt like this was trying to be more like, you know, they're in this ridiculous setting. Like, the German Alps they're kind of disconnected from society. It's kind of in the past. Like, the technology is old. The Alps are gorgeous. She's cycling around. Like, what teenager cycles anywhere anymore? Yeah. Like, I felt like it was combining creepy and camp, and for me it worked. Especially, like, the monster. Like, she looks insane. Like, she's not actually scary to look at.
With the exception of the bicycle seat. Okay, I just have to say I found this film too silly to be scary. Really, it was just
you weren't scared. I was scared,
I was, at least like the bike scene, I was a little bit like, oh, what are we doing here? But then it just lost all its...
Basically, once you become inseminated, you start to throw up, which is why she saw the lady throwing up in the lobby. And what happened to the detective's wife is that she died by choking on her own vomit. So they're like, you need to turn the surrogate mother on her side so she doesn't die, and then she'll survive and come out with this animal. So then you find out that this has happened to Gretchen's stepmother. So the last time they were there, 7 years ago, and she finds a picture of them together with Dr. Koenig.
Oh, yes, I forgot this.
Yeah, this is the whole point, right? Is that Beth was impregnated by Alma, who is Gretchen's stepsister. So again, this is not even her own baby. This is like a surrogate baby, not even her own egg or genetic material. It's like the creature has been impregnated in her, but ends up looking Asian, even though she's not the same genetic material. The mother's Asian. Yeah, but I think that's on purpose. It's like making you think about what it means to be a mother, to create life, what it means to have a family. Anyway, I'm just going through the plot quickly. And then there is a scene of confrontation between Gretchen and the doctor. There's like gunshots fired because the detective is coming to maybe try to rescue Gretchen from the Dr. Koenig's house. Somehow they're in a library. How do we get to the library?
So Dr. Koenig tells Gretchen, your parents are gone. Come over to my house and I'll give you some money and you can go home or wherever you'd like. She goes to Dr. Koenig's house. And Dr. Koenig has Henry tied up, and then he reveals his diabolical plan.
Like, gets the slime off her and puts it in the vagina. Like, it's a very evocative of, like, what it's like to carry a human.
And then once you come to term with the pregnancy and you deliver, you put your child into another family's host family, and they will raise your child for you. That's the whole idea, that they're raising her child for her. And that's why the hooded woman is attacking Gretchen, because it's competing resources.
Yeah, to get
you see,
her,
that is the whole point of the film. So then that's why the hooded woman is constantly attacking Gretchen. Yeah. So this is when, this is a terrible film, because it's so convoluted unnecessarily, because then we have the scene where Dr. Koenig, Bond villain, has revealed his plot. So he decides that I'm going to put you in this abandoned swimming pool, and here's a bed for you. And he takes out a little flute. Wonderful character, this Dr. Koenig. And he calls the teenage girl in the very beginning of the film. Do you remember?
Yeah,
and he wants the teenage girl to come and inseminate Gretchen.
Oh, right, okay.
But then he changes his mind midway and tries to kill Gretchen. And then Henry escapes somehow.
You don't think she was trying to kill Gretchen?
She was trying to inseminate Gretchen. Because she was like doing the survivor thing. She was going to inseminate Gretchen. And then Henry comes, and then this is a terrible plot because it's because we have Dr. Koenig change his mind, take his gun out to try and kill Gretchen before she gets inseminated, but then Henry comes in and then shoots Dr. Koenig and the teenage girl, whatever she is, the creature. Dr. Koenig is very clearly shot at close range. They escape. Guess what, Dr. Koenig? Not a scratch, not a mark on him. He's totally fine.
To cinema,
I really cannot defend this film. When it comes to suspense from Hitchcock, I guess we have two main aspects. It's information, the amount of information doled out to the audience, and the timing of when that information is doled out, and how that creates suspense. For example, like if you and I were having this conversation, but we didn't know this, but the audience knew that there was a bomb underneath this sofa, that creates tension. You know what I mean? And how that is doled out, and then the longer that we talk, the more tension that's stretched out. These tools of the trade are not known by this director. Okay, he's terrible with all of this stuff.
I think it's
plot, pacing, mishmash of ideas. It's just half baked. I want to root for this film. By the way, I even made a list of things I really liked about this film. I like Hunter Schafer's character. I like Dan Stevens' character. I like the idea of using something in nature as creepy as to impose into this. I like the German Bavarian Alps. There are so many things to like about this film. I'm really happy I watched this because take a risk.
It wasn't a waste of your
you know what I mean? Take a risk. Go out and watch something. Don't go for Avengers 7 all the time. Just take risks. You know, like I'm very happy. The next film this guy makes, I will watch it. I think he has promise. But I think I made my point. It just was too convoluted for me.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I think for me, I had a total different reaction, and maybe it's because I have kind of a bad memory and don't remember plots to begin with. Like when I see something, I really am more focused on like how it makes me feel and what it makes me think of. I agree that like the things that you've listed, I could see how you could feel that way, but they just didn't detract at all for me. Like I felt suspense. I felt like things weren't revealed too early. And I also felt like the lead up to the full battle between Gretchen and the monster did come with like a lot of anticipation. And I think also like the storytelling was very compelling to me because maybe my interpretation of storytelling is a bit different to yours in the sense that I'm not so focused on like it following like this plot graph. I'm more interested in like the relationships or like the feelings or like the scenes in themselves. But even that aside, like even if I were to just judge it on like the story and the plot, like I feel like it's not any worse than Midsommar or like these other scary films where like you're like, where did this guy come from? Why is this person doing that? Like it's part of the genre almost.
On the central aspect, I 100% agree with you. Storytelling at its core is an emotional enterprise, okay? And I am here with you. When I'm sitting in the cinema, I'm not there with my magnifying glass trying to scrutinize everything. I'm usually 99% of the time rooting for the film. But there are sometimes when you just lose whatever credit you have with me that I start getting frustrated. And the thing was that I want to stay in that emotional state. I'm trying to be there. But when you do so many things that it takes me out of it, then I just get frustrated, which is the emotions that I felt. And again, at the end of the day, if they achieved in conveying the emotions to you and you received them as they intended, this is a successful film for you. It just didn't happen my way.
Totally.
And I don't think it's just because all the dots didn't connect. I also think it's because I felt like I see all the things that he's trying to do. I just don't think he did them well. I think there's a lot of work. It's half-baked. A lot of work would be needed on the script to change things. In my opinion, I would do that. And I would make it significantly less convoluted. I know you don't find it convoluted, but I did.
And even us discussing it right after the movie, being like, what happened? I felt like I got a lot of what was happening, like right off the bat. Like I wasn't confused. But anyway, maybe we can pivot a bit and talk about what I liked about it.
Yeah.
Because I think even if as like a story or a film or a structure maybe didn't hit all the marks that you expected, it did make me think about a lot of key themes that I thought, you know, we mentioned last time how we were thinking about Brazil even a few days afterward. And it actually happened for me with Cuckoo as well, which I was surprised. And I think just those like flashes of like imagery or message was like enough for me to feel like I was getting something valuable from having watched the movie.
Right.
So I think the whole idea of what's more cruel, like how humans have constructed society or like what is in nature is interesting. I don't think it was like a strong enough connection because the cuckoo thing, I mean, unless I had looked up afterward that cuckoo was a brood parasite, I don't think I would have made that connection. All he does is show a little card of a bird and be like, this is the cuckoo bird.
Yes. Yeah.
That's like the only hint you get.
Yeah.
I maybe need a little bit more heavy-handed imagery. Like I need some like more guiding lights to like get that connection. So would love your thoughts on like that nature bit. But then I also just really think it's interesting to think about like the women being impregnated and like being vessels through which he had to like continue this species. Yeah, maybe I'm giving the movie like more credit than it deserves because these are just my own ideas that I'm thinking.
Yes, I think you're kind of imposing very sophisticated insight into a film that doesn't deserve it. Maybe that's too harsh.
But he made me think it, so he gets the credit.
Yeah,
I don't know.
One thing I did find interesting was that they were getting inseminated against their will by other women, but at the same time, it was by a man. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It was like he was doing this to them. I don't know if there was. Maybe we're digging too deep.
No, but that's the thing, Anand, right? It's like what I find is when I do love these ideas, usually I like the idea itself is like, oh, that's interesting. But if you dig any deeper, it's like there's not much more. Because I think that is where I can agree with you on it being half baked. Is like it kind of just plops like, you know, these ideas. It doesn't really have like an answer or a point of view. Maybe this is a very simple message, but just there are so many different families in the movie and like finding out, you know, like the strongest familial bond in this movie is between Gretchen and her sister, who are not real sisters and not of the same race.
Correct.
Like not of the same species, like human race.
Race or species.
Yeah, race or species. And maybe I'm a sap, but I really like that.
Yeah, I think that really struck a chord with you very intensely.
Yeah.
I mean, I like sister movies too. I mean, watch The Parent Trap. That's a good sister movie. I don't know. Like there are so many other ones that have a good Little Women.
No, but it's the point about like not like being adopted or like not being or like being an immigrant or whatever, and like or being a cuckoo bird raised in a nest that's not yours and like still being treated more kindly than her father, her literal blood treats her.
I do think all of this hinged on that voice answering message, because so shines a good deed in a weary world. You're so surprised that someone that you've neglected or disregarded has such feeling for you and is really looking after your back. And I guess without that scene, I would have been like, this is hollow.
But you definitely need that scene. But I also think it's more impactful than just sisterly love. Like this is the creature that they've been hunting and trying to kill. And then by the end of the movie, Gretchen is trying to defend her because this artificial sister bond is stronger to her than like, you know, extinguishing this murderous species. Like, I love the ending in that, maybe it's not that deep, but she does, like, care more to protect her sister than to, like, take out a monster.
But there are so many things that come in front of my way, obstruct me from getting to that. For example, like, why? Why is he doing this? Well, why does he need to... what was going to happen when he connects, what's the kid's name, the daughter, with the mother? Why doesn't he care about the teenage girl at the beginning reuniting with her mother? There's just so many weird questions. And then, like, I get exhausted. I want to be where you are, but I just can't.
But that's fine because we just, I think it's really interesting talking to you about it because you just, like, learn how other people interpret the same thing or receive the same thing.
In fact, like my overwhelming experience after watching this was just frustration. I just threw my hands in the air. But then you were like impacted by it. And then when you told me that let's talk about this, initially I was like, I don't want to relive this. Yeah. But at the same time, like I think it's good. Yeah. This is an important conversation to have when it comes to not just like how a film should be. Okay, like I just want to take a step back and say, I just prescribed, how suspense should be. And I think having that kind of rule is really bad in art, because then you have an authoritarian. Yeah, but please, have you heard of Chesterton's fence? No. So Chesterton's fence is a theory that you can only remove this fence until you tell me why this fence was put there in the first place. Do you see what I mean? Whereas
I'm like, if I see the fence there and then you remove it later, it could still impact me. Anyway, you finish.
The point I'm trying to make is that the reason why there are these structures, why do we have a protagonist? Why are most protagonists like, someone that you can... but historically, there were less anti-heroes. There were more protagonists that were like an everyman. Why? Because they want everybody in the audience to, these kind of little rules. Yeah. They were done for reasons. You know what I mean? When it comes to storytelling. And when people subvert those rules really well, it becomes extremely compelling. You know what I mean? Please do that. Subvert rules. But it's risky. Because when you go away from the norm, you're taking a risk. Yeah. You know what I mean? And sometimes you soar, sometimes you crash and fail.
To wrap things up.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I don't think I even need to ask whether you recommend watching it. What are a good wrap-up questions?
I think this 2024, what are we? We're in October now. For the past few months, there have been really good, very solid horror films. And I would mention two that are in this vein.
You're going to hate me because I think I like this more than The Substance, but continue.
Oh, three. I'll include The Substance. I wasn't going to include The Substance. I was going to say Strange Darling, Speak No Evil, and The Substance. I think those three are significantly better than this. Yeah. I'm blown away that you think this is better than The Substance.
I mean, this is what it's like to live in Lilian's world. Like, I just go based on how it made me feel, and if it made me come up with an interesting idea, I'm gonna be like, oh, I love that movie. But I will give you that I've heard really good things about those other two. So if I then go see those, and then I'm like, oh, that's nothing compared to
Speak No Evil, I don't think is that amazing. It just I loved how awful it made me feel, because a lot of it is about social niceties and trying not to offend people, and that's the chef's kiss.
Yeah, I love that theme too. And I will say another thing I really like about Cuckoo is I feel like I've been watching some scary movies recently, and when the big reveal is they're part of a cult, or they worship Satan, or this is Satan's incarnation, I realize that totally doesn't work for me. I just don't find it like scary or very satisfying. And I was reflecting on it, and I think I much rather have the scary monster be like part from an experiment, or like some sci-fi element, or some societal ill, and maybe just by happenstance, like the last few movies I've watched have been more the other. So this was like really more my cup of tea.
I mean, like my favorite horror film is Rosemary's Baby, and that also has a bit of a brood parasitism kind of stuff into it. But I think the key thing about Rosemary's Baby is, of course, the revelation. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Rosemary's Baby, is a satanic cult. Yeah. That does not matter, because that is at the tail end of the film. What matters is she's having a terrible pregnancy, and no one is helping her, and you know what's happening, but you're reaching out to try and help her. You know what's happening. No one can do anything to save her. It's beautiful. The film isn't about the satanic thing. That's just, it's just the clothesline to hang the ideas on. Do you see what I mean? That's
I see what you. But that's my point. It's like I prefer a clothesline that's like nature or sci-fi, or I don't know. It's just like my personal preference. I just feel like I can't relate to it, and I think maybe when the U.S. was a lot more Christian, it was like a lot more of a compelling of a backdrop. Or I don't know. The U.S. is still quite Christian, but for me personally, I like it when the clothesline is like not a cult or related to Satan.
Because I'm really at a disadvantage when it comes to like ghosts or supernatural, because I'm a non-believer. I don't really believe in any of those things, so it never has that much of a frightening impact. Like the Conjuring stuff, I'm just like, okay. Exactly. But at the same time, I do kind of like spooky atmosphere. I like drawn out,
This is, I like, if this reminds you of anything, this is what I like, which is like just something that's like you don't have to think too much, but it's like hitting you with a lot of like, okay, whatever. We don't.
I'm not gonna do anything. But
yeah,
I will say in its favor, it took some risks. It was original. It was not based on any IP. And please make more of these.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope you make them better, but keep going.
So for me, I would definitely recommend this if you like. I thought the soundtrack was amazing. I thought the like camera work was amazing, and it obviously impacted me. So I feel like if you like the subject matter of like the role of a woman in a family, the role of the mother, like what does it mean to be a mother, and then like the creepiness coming from the setting and nature. I also do like the combination of like creepy and camp, because I do feel like the hooded figure was quite camp, like the Dr. Koenig was maybe not camp, but definitely very villainous.
He was camp.
Yeah.
I think he was camp.
And even
did you see what he was wearing?
even just like the set design, it's like very, I liked it. It like had a style to it, and I think I like that kind of. It really, I felt immersed, and I really liked kind of the world they were building. Any last words?
Actually,
like you're happy.
I would recommend you watch it and then put in the comments what you think.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay, great.
Yeah. All right. Take care. Bye, guys.
Bye. Like and subscribe.